Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey, Levin here.
Jason?
Derek here.
So, big week for us. On Thursday, it is the launch of the TMZ Audio Network.
This is really exciting. Years in the making, honestly. Derek and I are a big part of this. We're launching, we have the TMZ Podcast. This podcast that you all listen to is going to continue. And then we have 3 new podcasts we're announcing. Last Days, very special to Derek and me. We're hosting this.
Very excited about Last Days, where we're going to explore the final moments of some of the biggest celebrities, some that we've covered, and you've heard all the news stories here. You're going to get all the inside scoop.
Right. And then 2 others, TMZ Sports, Michael Babcock and Mojo Mutati is launching a podcast. You guys probably know them from the show on FS1. They're now launching a podcast. And then Spilling Royalty, harkening back to, this is the second season. We did it previously with the build-up to the launch, to the marriage of Harry and Meghan.
Now it's juicy.
The drama hasn't stopped.
It's juicy. It's juicy. With the coronation coming up and Charles having difficulty getting a musical act.
And the memoir.
And Meghan and Harry getting dragged and their popularity plummeting in the United States. Anyway.
So Thursday, please subscribe. Listen to everywhere you can get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, et cetera, and subscribe to the podcast.
I just am chomping at the bit to talk about this right now. Woody Harrelson was hosting Saturday Night Live, and he said some things about COVID that I want to talk about.
The biggest drug cartels in the world get together and buy up all the media and all the politicians and force all the people in the world to stay locked in their homes, and people can only come out if they take the cartel's drugs and keep taking them over and over. I threw the script away. I mean, who is going to believe that crazy idea, being forced to do drugs? I do that voluntarily all day long.
Wow. You can hear the uncomfortable laughter in the audience.
No,
you can hear,
exactly.
because I watched the show, and he gave his whole monologue, and this was the final part where he's talking about new movies and he makes this vaccine joke, and the audience vibe changes. You can hear them sort of squirm a little bit. There's still scattering of laughs.
I think there is a sea change in this country. And what Woody Harrelson is saying is out there for sure. But I think the way officials handled the pandemic has led now to really out there and even crazy conspiracy theories that are being embraced by people who otherwise would never have embraced it. Because all of a sudden, what we're seeing is that the scientists didn't necessarily get it right. And in many respects, let's start with the fact that you couldn't talk about COVID emanating from a Chinese lab because it was xenophobic. It was anti-Asian. And, you know, Donald Trump was ridiculous.
Presented in a very xenophobic, anti-Asian way.
It was xenophobic, talking about, as he put it, Kung flu.
Yes.
I mean, that's just racist.
Yes.
It's just racist.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that obviously, it didn't help discourse. But there should have been discourse. And what happened was people got censored. Social media platforms censored people who would dare talk about the possibility that this came from a Chinese lab, because somehow that's xenophobic, which I never really understood.
Well, it was presented as a stark choice, which it shouldn't have been, to your point about discourse, but it was presented as a stark choice. You can either go full racist, it was intentionally done by the Chinese as a way of infiltrating the American psyche or whatever it was, or you had to be completely opposed to that. Instead of having a reasonable discussion about the possible generation of this disease.
Well, guess what? Now, all of a sudden, these federal agencies, most notably the Department of Energy, now has come out and said there is a likelihood that this emanated from a Chinese lab. That, by the way, doesn't mean that it was some diabolical plan to spread it. It could have just been an accident.
No, they say it was a leak from
a Chinese
accident.
lab.
Right.
Yeah.
But you couldn't even
talk bioterrorism.
But this is the consequence of this insane culture we live in right now, where everybody wants to censor everything. That if it's like both extremes believe they have the truth with a capital T, and anybody who dares to disagree with them should be stepped on, stomped on, and censored. And this is the result, that we can't even have I want to swear right now, but have discussions.
You're allowed to swear. It's a podcast.
Fuck this shit.
Yeah, look, I'm
serious.
That was too much, Harv. Sorry.
I'm really serious.
Yeah.
It's like this democracy, this country was built on freedom of expression, where you could practice religion, where you could practice free speech. You could say what you want without being imprisoned, without being, castigated. And we're back to that shit.
I do want to say, though, it came from a good place not to sort of focus on where it
didn't.
I think it did, actually. I think it came from the place of people will receive
They were wrong.
I understand
they were wrong.
But I think it came from the place of people will receive this and it will proliferate anti-Asian hate in a similar fashion after 9/11.
So let's
there was a worry about Islamophobia.
Okay, good. So
everyone said, let's not focus on the nationality.
Let's censor it.
Religious.
Let's just censor it. Let's censor it. Let's not talk about it for fear that some idiot is going to grab it and turn it into something that it isn't. No, you've got to tolerate that. And the fact that we couldn't talk about the possibility this came from a lab. And by the way, they were wrong on masks. Wear them, don't wear them. They prevent. They were wrong on COVID. You won't get it if you get the shot. They were wrong on a lot of things. But that's okay.
But I don't think that scientists ever set out when they make these pronouncements as we're 100% right. Their statement is based on everything we know at the time.
They didn't say that.
Well, but that's what all scientists.
I know that's the implication.
They were working on these vaccines in real time.
In real time. And by the way,
that's fine, Jason. Yeah. But don't censor and castigate people who disagree.
Well, let's take Woody Harrelson's comments for a second, because this is what we're building on this. Woody Harrelson, what he's saying is a disservice to the millions and millions and tens of millions of people whose lives were saved because of this vaccine. And he can say whatever he wants. Woody Harrelson is also somebody who doesn't believe in government except for the purpose of enforcing veganism and enforcing a way of life that is 100% pro-environmentalism. That's his entire reason for being. And he has talked about this. He's an anarchist. He has said, I'm an anarchist. He does not believe in government intervention in people's lives, period. Now, he may have a point. I don't know. We can discuss whether anarchy is a good thing or a bad thing, but that's who the messenger is here. What we also know is that, I was looking it up before today, the Indian government believes they've saved as many as 34 million citizens' lives because of the vaccine. Now, maybe the Indian government's an idiot. I don't know.
I don't understand that. 34 million people. The reality is this.
They got a lot of people.
They got a lot of people.
In close proximity to each other.
Let me tell you something. If you look at polls, and I think this is really interesting, and yes, I got this from Real Time with Bill Maher, but if you look at polls and you ask Democrats how many people, what percentage of people die when they get COVID, it is shocking. They say 50%. It's 1%.
People are morons.
It's 1%.
Yeah.
It's 1%. And so to say 34 million, look a lot of people who
6.8
guys,
million.
It's
a lot of people.
A lot of people get COVID. Almost all of them survive. I got the vaccine once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. I got 4 vaccines. So I'm not anti-vax. I got it. But what I'm saying is most people don't die from it. Most people survive it. And, a huge number survive it.
But hold on. Far more survive it by percentages when they're vaccinated.
Yeah.
The vast majority of people die.
The 1% that would have died, a lot of those get saved because
that 1%
of COVID.
is an amalgam of numbers of vaccinated and unvaccinated people. I think the numbers before the vaccine were considerably higher than that 1%.
That's 1%. Most people.
Well, you keep saying that number because of the vaccine.
No, it's not because of the vaccine. A lot of people were getting it. But this is something that is rooted in a lot of underlying diseases, that exacerbates COVID. And again, we're talking like we're scientists. Look, I don't know all the answers. What I'm saying is I want to listen. I want to hear people talk. I want to hear Dr. Fauci and what he says. But I also want to hear other points of view on this thing. And what they did was, and to me it's emblematic of what's going on in this country, is that you're not allowed to say it. You're not allowed to say it. You shouldn't be on social media. We're going to censor you. And this is the exact thing I think that's ruining this country. And I'm not saying that I disagree with Fauci because, again, I followed what Fauci said. And I'm glad I did. But that doesn't mean I don't want to hear what other people have to say. And as wacky as what Woody Harrelson is saying, I think he has a bigger audience because of the censorship, as now it's coming out.
So he's obviously not that censored. So people were saying it all the time.
No,
Joe
because
Rogan was talking
the
about
barn
this
doors are
throughout
getting
the time.
barn doors are getting blown open.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Donald Trump said you can inject bleach into your veins.
Well,
and
he's
maybe
crazy. He's crazy.
But how? But if you're going to accept, if you're going to have a legitimate debate about Woody Harrelson's comments, you also need to have a legitimate debate about whether bleach should be injected into the arms to save people.
Well, okay, who's the gatekeeper here?
Well, none of us are. But your point is, my point is that the gatekeeper is common sense. The medical professionals we look to, some of whom are sometimes wrong, usually right, or we can believe in them.
Do you want to censor? No.
Nobody
Nobody's
to censor anybody. Anybody can
But we
say
did.
whatever they want.
No, they can't, and
Why?
they didn't.
Joe Rogan has the biggest platform in the world.
Who censors,
Who
by
said
the
it the
way,
entire time?
other people coming onto his show to say things that he doesn't agree with.
The reason Joe Rogan can do what Joe Rogan does is he is independent. If you want to get on social media to tell your story, and you wanted to tell your story during the pandemic, and you wanted to say that you believed it came from a lab, you weren't going to get on social media.
Their algorithms push that stuff down.
But you
There's
could
no
get on
doubt
Joe
about it.
Rogan with his 100 million audience or whatever his audience.
No, I
10
understand that,
million
but
audience.
but what I'm saying to you is, look,
Or you
I
get
can
on Fox
take or
News.
leave what Joe Rogan says, but I don't want social media to be my parent.
But you're just focusing on social media. We had plenty of other voices, contrary voices. Sure, you had Twitter and Facebook who were saying one thing. You had Joe Rogan and the president of the United States, the most powerful man in the world, saying something to the contrary, saying that there were all these alternative drugs that we should look into. It's not like these voices were being stymied to the extent you couldn't hear them.
Yeah, but here's the problem.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
We heard him.
The president has a bully pulpit. Joe Rogan has his own platform. But for doctors and other people who wanted to get their word out through places like social media, they didn't have that access, because if they dare tried, by the way, they'd be viewed as racist, they'd be viewed as crazy, and this is such a reputationally based business, medicine and science, that their reputations would be ruined. So they were basically censored.
Yeah, there's no doubt certain viewpoints were suppressed on social media and otherwise
It's
because
just
there
that-
was a public health crisis that we needed to get as many jabs in the arms as
do you know
possible.
how-
That was the point of the exercise.
Before the vaccine came out, I'm talking about when there were no jabs, you couldn't talk about a lab. You couldn't. And it's just ridiculous.
I think if you open up the door to all viewpoints, regardless of how crazy they are, should be respected and debated, you are going to open yourself up to debating things that we don't want to debate. Debating things like
so who's the parent here then?
I don't know.
Well, you got to answer that.
Let me ask you a question.
Was Alex Jones debating Sandy Hook?
Alex Jones ended
He was
up
debating it.
Listen, Alex Jones is disgusting.
Exactly.
But wait a minute.
To who? He has got a big audience.
Define what the principle of free speech for
he
me.
can
What
say
is
whatever
free
he
speech?
wants, but you have to suffer the consequences
Okay.
of being disregarded by mainstream society as a lunatic.
Guess what? They weren't lunatics when they said it was a lab. They weren't lunatics.
The lab leak is
They may or may
Those are
not
two
be
different
right,
issues.
but
two
it's
different things than the vaccine.
but yet they were lumped.
hate and
They were lumped into the same bucket.
Well, I mean, look, people are closed-minded and debates get squashed, and we shouldn't do that. But if you are going to open everything up, everybody's point of view deserves a fulsome debate, then let's debate whether or not the Sandy Hook parents actually brought it upon themselves and then made all this stuff
I'm
up.
not. Listen,
I want to have that debate.
Well, no. But wait a minute. I'm not
I mean,
saying
you don't actually want to. You're
Yeah,
setting up a straw man.
I
Just
am
everyone should know. Jason doesn't want to have that debate.
right, and I'm not saying that everything is worthy of debate. You can cast aside ridiculous, disgusting points of view.
Who's the gatekeeper?
Well, no, hold on. We are. The public is. And if Alex Jones wants to do what Alex Jones does, then he does suffer the consequences in the sense that he was sued, he lost, he's been financially ruined, and probably that isn't enough from what he. But wait a minute.
He doesn't want Twitter and Facebook being the gatekeepers.
But
Fine.
define
Don't use them.
What is free speech? Is free speech?
nothing to Twitter and
is
Facebook.
free
Nothing to do
speech?
with them.
I understand that. I get what
But Truth Social or Fox News or whomever have their own gatekeeping of what they're allowed to
I
say.
understand that. Why are we siloing? Listen, you watch certain two cable networks, and you're going to get a totally different view of the world.
Yes.
Both of them not true. Both of them are not complete. They're skewed. It's not the way the world works. And yet, if you just glom onto one or the other, that's the view you're going to get. And you become intolerant and hate the other side.
Yes.
What I'm saying is allow this kind of discourse and don't be so afraid that or angry that somebody will dare disagree with you, because the whole point of free speech, and I understand I'm not talking the First Amendment, but I'm talking about the principle, is that you have to tolerate not views that you agree with, because that's easy. It's views that are disgusting to you. It's the only way you have free speech. And we've lost it in this country. Even the ACLU has lost it. Lost it.
Yeah.
Lost it.
Yeah. Your notion of it is bygone. I mean, it's
over.
almost quaint.
It's over.
Yeah. And it's upsetting, I'm sure, because you lived through an era where we truly had more of a crucible of ideas. I mean,
yes.
But we don't have it anymore. We're in these silos.
I mean, even the Vietnam War. It was that, young people who were the ones who were fighting, young people took a stand, and their speech wasn't squelched. And we made a difference. We made a difference in this society. The war ended.
Although Nixon tried to quiet them down when they would get on the steps.
The war ended.
Rabble-rousers.
That war ended because of young people and demonstrations. And I wonder if the same thing would happen today with an unpopular point of view at the beginning that ends up being the right view in the end.
Well, the war in Iraq was another test.
That's another one.
Yeah, where you were not allowed to say anything against the war for a long, long time. All dissent was squashed, and you were un-American, unpatriotic.
And look what happened.
And right now, there's a lot of discourse.
And the only thing I'm saying is, look, I'm not embracing what Woody Harrelson said. I get it. I mean, it sounds crazy to me, but let him talk. And it's like, and we can talk. How much did we?
He did. He got a smattering of uncomfortable laughs.
And how much did we talk about what Woody Harrelson's theory? We didn't.
Yeah.
So we talked about something else. But it's the principle of allowing him to speak to me that's really essential to a democracy, and we've lost it in this country.
Yeah.
So the Last Days podcast coming on Thursday, huh, Derek?
Last Days of Democracy.
Last Days of Democracy.
We're pivoting.
Okay, I'm sorry, but this was building up with me all weekend.
Have a good one,
All right,
everybody.
see you guys later.
See ya.